Hey, thank you for taking a couple of minutes to watch this video. I want to be as clear and as honest and forthright as I can. And let me give you a little history here and why I'm reaching out to Rabbi Blumenthal and to all of you in this way. Rabbi Israel Blumenthal and I have known each other, I believe, since 2001. And through much of that time, we're in regular interaction in one way or another, me as a follower of Jesus, him as a traditional Jew. And we've interacted a lot. Last year, we agreed to do for the first time a video series where each month we would publish a 20-minute video, the first one laying out our views on the real Messiah according to the scriptures, and then the second month responding to that video, and then the third month responding again, and those would all be posted with links to one another. I'm thrilled that we did that. I'm so glad that we did that. I really sought to lay out the best arguments as to why I, as a Jew, followed Jesus, Yeshua, the Messiah, and to present these and to have counterpoint back and forth with Rabbi Blumenthal. Every major argument I made, I absolutely stand behind. However, in the course of the video, the third one in particular, I spoke wrongly about Rabbi Blumenthal, and I failed to acknowledge a correct point that he made. So I want to set the record straight. Now, I know on his end that he's written something and posting something as well where he wanted to apologize to me for some things. But this I want to focus on where I sinned against my colleague, Rabbi Blumenthal. Let me explain. It's not to justify, but just to explain. Over the course of quite a few months leading up to the debate and then during the debate, I came under the impression that Rabbi Blumenthal was not dealing honestly, that he was violating rules that we had agreed to, that he was even using deceptive tactics in the debate. So the third debate, I decided I was going to call him out and say where he had intentionally misled you, the audience. I was wrong. When we interacted, when we went back and forth, when he explained why he did certain things, I realized that I had misjudged him. So, for example, there are 3 times specifically that I'm aware of where I misjudged him in the video. Again, every major argument I made, absolutely, of course, I stand behind those. Please watch all the debates, but I want to apologize. And of course, I've done this in private already. Number one, I said that when he introduced the question about a Jew's love for God, that was a way of just pushing a Jewish emotional button and sidetracking for the argument about real Messiah. In my mind, it was sidetracking, clearly sidetracking and unrelated to what we had agreed on. And to me, was a deceptive debating tactic. When I interact with him directly about it afterwards, and he explained why he did it and why he felt it fit in perfectly, okay, I understand that I was wrong to say that he was just trying to push an emotional button there. His intent was to raise an argument he thought was relevant. I didn't think it was relevant. I could have just said that, but I handled that wrongly. My apologies to Rabbi Blumenthal. Secondly, on 2 occasions, I put words in his mouth, claiming that he had put words in my mouth. And you say, well, why did you do that? Well, because I misjudged where he was coming from. I read between the lines in certain things. So he made a certain statement. I took it that he was agreeing with me, not acknowledging it, and thereby I put words in his mouth and made a false claim. I want to be very specific. One, in relation to why I believe the servant of Isaiah 53 isn't the nation as a whole, I wrongly put words in Rabbi Blumenthal's mouth. Secondly, as to the question if I presented a theological argument about the identity of the servant of Isaiah 53, I wrongly put words in his mouth. Rabbi Blumenthal, for that, I apologize. Lastly, I raised an argument that I've raised for many years, namely that if you'll go from Isaiah 40 to 48 and look at the identity of the servant, it is overwhelmingly focusing on the nation as the servant of Israel, the servant as Israel, and just here and there, maybe only once clearly focusing on the individual servant of the Lord. All right? I've pointed out when you go to 49 to 53, the focus is overwhelmingly on the individual servant. Not Jacob, Israel as the servant of the Lord, but the individual, the Messiah as the servant of the Lord. I absolutely stand behind that argument and believe I can easily demonstrate that. But then I used a secondary argument. And I said, if you'll notice, and I'd read this from another scholar, checked it out and thought it works. If you'll notice, you'll see that references to Jacob and Israel diminish in chapters 49 to 53 compared to 40 to 48. Now, that is true. And it's also true that you'll see repeatedly the servant is referred to as Jacob, Israel in 40 to 48, and then only one time referred to as Israel, and that's 49:3, and that's speaking of the Messiah, the individual representing the nation. However, Rabbi Blumenthal dug deeper, and he said, okay, it's true that the references by name to Jacob, Israel, get lower in chapters 49 to 53. But if you look at just references to the nation of Israel in other descriptions, you'll see there are many, many, many of them. Now, I didn't respond to that argument in the third video. You say, why not? Number one, he didn't address my larger issue about the focus being on the individual servant and the proportional differences there. He didn't focus on that issue. That's number one. Number two, there were many arguments I raised he didn't respond to, so I didn't feel the need to respond to every point he made. And number three, I didn't follow fully his point. I didn't get it completely. You say, what do you mean? What I mean is he raised a great argument. He's right. I stand corrected in terms of that sub point I was making. He's correct on that. I want to emphasize that. But here's what happened. If you watch his presentation, he says, when you look at 49 to 52, leading up to the 53rd chapter of Isaiah, you'll see there are many, many, many references to the nation of Israel, not by name Israel, but references to them in other terms. Absolutely right. But he didn't tell me the proportion in 40 to 48. He didn't finish the argument there. So I had no way of knowing with his specific count what count he would come up with. Therefore, I passed by the point. So he is correct. My argument about Jacob, Israel, and diminishing references 40 to 48 compared to 49 to 52, he's correct in saying, no, if you look, there's an even greater focus on the nation. And if you look, you'll see a greater focus on the nation in other terms in 49 to 52 than you'll find in 40 to 48, which then in his argument would lead to a corporate servant in 53. My view is actually that my argument is strengthened because once I dug into the references, I found that the focus on the servant becomes even greater than I had realized before when I did a micro count. But he's correct in the argument, and I didn't acknowledge it. I explained why I passed by it at that point. But now that it's gotten fleshed out fully, I did want to acknowledge that. In any case, I apologized to Rabbi Blumenthal months back privately. Now we've been interacting about how to do things publicly. I know there's a statement he wanted to make as well, but it's important that I posted this. And please watch the debate, go through it, get everything you can out of it. I believe we both presented very strong arguments, and obviously I stand where I stand with great joy. But I do apologize to my colleague Rabbi Blumenthal for saying those things wrongly about him during the debate. Thanks for watching.